what separates a Toastmaster from a professional speaker, or what separates a hobby from a career? It's not necessarily talent and experience, it's having the right tools. And I'm going to share a few tools with you. And I'm a little bit uncomfortable up here because you've probably all experienced imposter syndrome. So we're having a discussion about professional speaking. I'm the imposter here today, but because I've taken one or two steps in that direction, and maybe that's one or two steps that some of you haven't taken. So I guess that makes me an expert qualified to speak about the first one or two steps. And the first one or two steps all have the same objective. They all fill the same need. And that is demonstrating to somebody who schedules speakers that you have a message, that you have credibility, and that you can speak. And Jim alluded to this earlier about like, who is your audience and what material do you have? So the first thing to have in mind is a positioning statement. And the positioning statement should be worded something like, I work with blank to do what? I work with what audience to solve what problem? So you need to be able to articulate that clearly. And if you don't know that, then you need to work on that. And I've been working on that for over a year because I enrolled in the National Speakers Association Speaker Academy, and I wanted to talk about adult ADHD and how do you manage ADHD in the workplace and how do you be successful with ADHD. And I got so much feedback. Some people are like, that's great. That's a great topic. And other people are like, that's a terrible topic. So you need to, on one hand, people are saying, well, you need to be really narrow and focus in on a niche. And so I thought I had that. And then they said, well, nobody's going to pay you for that. You need to be able to speak about something broader. So I've created the next thing is I've created one sheet, and there's copies of it back here on the back table if you haven't picked it up. And Diane will share it on the screen and put it in the chat for the people online. The one sheet is a summary of what I speak on. And the first line in the blue is my positioning statement. So it's kind of a general statement here. I collaborate with audiences to turn challenges into opportunities. So rather than speaking specifically about ADHD, I broadened it and say, I'm going to talk about how do you change adversity into an advantage. And I'm going to use ADHD as my signature story of how to do that and take lessons from that can be applicable to more people. So one sheet has my picture, has what I talk about, and down here is a description, the adversity to advantage of my signature speech. On the back, there's some more pictures of me speaking, and there's some logos from organizations I've spoken to. And most of my speaking up to this point has been technical conferences, speaking to associations on an unpaid basis, but I'm leveraging that to say, look, I've got experience speaking so that I can demonstrate that I'm a speaker. So hopefully I'll get paid for that. And then I've got additional speaking topics. And so I've got my ADHD speech is one of my speaking topics where I could speak on ADHD at the workplace. And I've also got one about the hero's journey. And Jim alluded to that. I've been using that as a workshop of writing your own story and how you can see your own story as a source of inspiration. And you can share your own story as a way to inspire other people. So that's a one sheet. When I started we're looking at thinking about professional speaking, and I look at what some other speakers do. I go to their websites. Boy, I see these great websites, and they've got sizzle reels. They've got all these videos of their speaking, and they're on a stage, and they've got a cheering crowd of people. I think I'm really intimidated by that. Like, I'm nowhere near that. You don't need that. If you're like me, you're at the position of you're taking the first step or two. So you need to have a video. It doesn't have to be a sizzle reel made by a professional videographer. You need to have some video that they can look you up and they can see this person can speak. Maybe you need a website. Maybe you need a social media presence. Those are necessary at some point, but those aren't necessary for the first steps. And as you grow your business, you can expand your website and expand videos. And if you're getting paid for that, you're going to have resources then to build that. So don't feel like you need to have all that in hand ahead of time. You need to have a position statement. You need to have a one sheet. You need to be able to demonstrate some video that you can speak. What other items? Oh, testimonials. You need to share some testimonials, maybe some references. So I've got a testimonial on my one sheet, and I'm updated. I've got a very simple website that has some information on my speaking, has some testimonials. It's a very simple website because I made it, and I know nothing about making a website. But I can make a few slides in PowerPoint. If you can make a few slides in PowerPoint, you can use a program or a service to make your own website. So I made a very, very simple website on Wix. That's basically like a PowerPoint version of website, but I made it. And I feel like I finally caught up to all the people in the 21st century. But you don't need a lot to get started. It sounds like a lot. There's a lot to think about, a lot of things to do. But if you just boil it down, what you need for the first few steps are be able to articulate what is your position statement, who do you talk to, and what do you talk about, and how do you solve their problem, and be able to demonstrate that somebody that books speakers. And that's really what you need for the first step. Thank you.